not in the game, you can't win. Okay? If you're not in the game, you can't win.
I love it.
So you need to figure out how do you stay in the game, despite everything. Despite whatever is thrown at you, you need to figure out how to stay in the game.
Guy Miasnik, thank you so much for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders. How are you?
Very good, Michael. Thank you for having me here.
Of course you're good. Look at this view that you're talking from. Where are you now?
I am now from my home office. This is COVID time. We are all sheltering in place.
Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful home office.
But the view is from Mount Rose in Tahoe. And that's where I was 2 weeks ago, climbing with my bike out there. So,
Wait, climbing with your what?
Bike.
I didn't know you can climb with a bike, with a motorcycle.
And when you have Mount Rose over there in Tahoe, you basically walk hard and you climb.
Work hard, play hard. Guy, we have so much to talk about because, the most fascinating thing that asks you, in preparation for this, I asked a simple question. I want to talk about, the things you're passionate about and your different experiences. And I listed like 7 things we could talk about because you were the chief strategy officer at BlackBerry and you sold the company for $300 million to BlackBerry and HBS and so on. And you mentioned, at the essence of it, you're an entrepreneur. And that is your true passion beyond, the culmination of all these specific things. Guy, what does it mean to you that you're an entrepreneur? You've been an entrepreneur for quite some time, so you pretty have some good inner understanding of what it means to you.
That's a great question, Michael. So entrepreneur is really at the essence. It's in the heart. It's about an impeccable desire to create something that makes an impact. It's about shaping it the way you believe it should be shaped. And it's really having the passion to work with dedicated and brilliant people. These are, for me, the 3 things that really make or drive me and motivates me in the entrepreneurial world. It's create something, make an impact, shape it, and work with amazing people. And you get that, and you can make that happen in this kind of
When did you become an entrepreneur? What was your turning point? Was it after business school, before business school?
In high school.
Okay.
So my first entrepreneurial venture, quote unquote, was actually almost a non-profit. I was in high school in Kfar Saba, and there was a boarding school over there for very talented kids that come from a bit of a more difficult background. And somehow I got connected to the head of that boarding school. And I was sort of, as a kid and as a high school guy, I knew computers, I was passionate about computers. And he said, listen, I have some amazing, talented kids in my boarding school, and what can you do? So we sat down and I said, you know what, we are going to create a computer class, computer school for your afternoon activities for your kids.
And you did that, when did you do that?
This was about 6 or about like Aleph, what is it,
11th grade? Wow.
And I recruited a couple of my friends and we went out and we built a curriculum and we figured out and we helped sort of purchase some computers for a computer lab over there from some people who donated the money, and we created for them a class and taught it. So it was my first entrepreneurial. Now it's not a business, it's not a big startup, but it was creating something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Made an impact. And I did it with some of my best friends. So that's entrepreneurship on day one. That's high school. And then it just continues from there.
I love it. I'm taking so much inspiration. I'm coming from a pretty similar background. I think of myself pretty entrepreneurial back in high school, especially when it comes to, starting a robotics team or convincing the administration to have the BC calculus class, even though we don't have it. And I think the most inspiring thing is that after all those years and after the incredible journeys you've had, you still go back to that high school experience, which, like you're saying, it's not a startup, it's not a business, but you created value out of thin air, and that is entrepreneurship. Give me in two words this HBS experience. You're at Harvard Business School, one of the top places in the world for entrepreneurship and business. What are those 2 years like?
Life-changing.
Oh.
Life-changing. So I've been an entrepreneur before. I had a small company in Israel, successful, got acquired, but it was small scale. And the move to HBS and to the US opened your eyes, opened my eyes as an Israeli. I'm talking about 97, 98, to a much broader world, a much bigger way of thinking about things. And HBS does it for you. It basically shifts your mind from thinking in your own narrow cubicle.
Okay, the last thing that I heard was life changing. You come in and you're no longer in your own cubicle.
And then we froze. That's actually made the point. I mean, that's it. We don't need to continue from there. But really, the point was, I came from. I actually had my own. I had a previous startup in Israel, which was a smaller scale startup. And the move to the States, the move to HBS specifically, opened your eyes. Allows you to really think about much broader issues and much bigger. So for me, that was sort of a mega transition from coming from the small market of Israel to the bigger world and to really think about it in a different way. So HBS was amazing. And then besides that, it's people. You get a chance to meet some amazing.
I hear those two things. I hear about, first of all, I hear life changing, but then I hear that it's both about, understanding scale and meeting incredible people. What is it about these 2 years that make you transition from thinking small scale, nice startup to I'm going to go and sell a company for $300 million and become the CSO of BlackBerry? Like, what is that? No, what is that transition? I'm trying to understand because obviously, it's one of the dreams of mine to come to get to a place like this, but what is it?
So first of all, no one starts a startup and knows that he's going to sell it for 300 million and become a CSO of any company. So it's really about having the confidence to make a difference and to go for it. Okay, be ready to say, I can do it despite all of these crazy hurdles and crazy reasons and good reasons actually, not to do anything. And the fact that you have the confidence and in some respect the crazy mindset and the extremely optimistic mindset to say I'm going to do it is it. And HBS helps that. HBS actually as a school gives you the network, gives you the confidence, gives you the way to think about stuff. And I'm not saying it's the only way. There's many ways to get to become an entrepreneur, and I've been that before. But it definitely gave me a great boost. Now the second thing, my first investor, my second investor, my business partner, and my board members were all HBS. So that helps.
Okay, so that's the network side. But to culminate this, for anybody who doesn't get the chance to go to a HBS or Stanford Business School, summarize what is like a key takeaway that resonated throughout your journey there that you think this is a a lesson that really resonates throughout this experience.
Got it. Well, to really get that, we need to speak a bit about the experience, the entrepreneurial experience that I went through. And it was actually somewhat unique even for the Silicon Valley. If you count from day one to day exit, if let's call it, it was from 2000 to 2016 or 15. So it's about 15 or 16 years. Not a common path.
Wow.
And went through 9/11. Well, I should say from the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, 9/11, and then later the financial crisis. So three mega crises, which caused changes, caused pivots, and still at the end resulted in actually a very successful company. But it wasn't without a scar, and it wasn't without tremendous amount of work. So if there's one key lesson, there's a few, but one key lesson is, and that's something you learn not necessarily at HBS, you learn in the military, many places in life, is if you're not in the game, you can't win. Okay? If you're not in the game, you can't win.
I love
so
it.
You need to figure out how do you stay in the game, despite everything. Despite whatever is thrown at you, you need to figure out how to stay in the game. And then you need to figure out how to change and adapt as the game and then the landscape changes. You don't get stuck. If you continue to be stuck, you'll be outside. But if you're in the game, And if you're flexible enough to adjust and pivot, if you don't get panic when the crises are at you, but actually you seize the opportunity that they provide, and you're ready for the long term, you'll get there.
I love it. Okay, so changing the landscapes, you finish HBS, talk about you move on to create AtHoc, right? AtHoc, and ending up in BlackBerry. Take me through this journey. So you start a company, all of a sudden you're transitioning, you're in security, and you get to join this great company that previously was a pioneer in mobile. And you were just telling me that that what a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot more to BlackBerry than just mobile phones. It's actually a transition into a software company and actually dealing with also a lot of automobiles, right?
So the BlackBerry is an amazing story by itself, and we can probably speak about this for hours. As a side note there, but it's a company that was at its peak, right? It was at the head of mobile and was leading the world really in mobile devices, and frankly missed the boat in when Apple came in with smartphones, and as a result collapsed and stayed in the field mainly because it had its tremendous amount of money, but did not figure out how to pivot until the current CEO came, which is way before I joined, and decided, okay, let's pivot this company to become a software business.
This is John Chen, right?
That's John Chen. And John Chen did a great job in really rescuing the business because the way it was going outside. A big part of what he did was acquisition. He figured out that he needs to bring in talent and assets in order to make a transition of this nature. So it's the technologies, the customers, the people. And that's where there was a big match with what we brought in. We were a company that was dealing with communication, with government contracts, with security, with finance, financial services, etc. All of the things which actually BlackBerry was looking for. And that's how the merge came in, and we basically were acquired and got in. Now, from within, it's a different story. It's a different story because now you are part of a team, and I was in the executive team over there, trying to figure out how to take this new vision, which is not easy, and transition this company from a mobile device with all of these assets that were acquired with us and another company at the time called Good Technologies and a bunch of smaller companies that were acquired a bit earlier on, and get all of these entities together to speak together and really provide value. And that's what that was one of my tasks as a CSO, is to figure out and put some direction around. Now, one of the things that was fascinating is one of these assets was a company called QNX, which was around a security for cars. And they provide software that really provides that. And in the world of security, in the world of automated cars and everything that we are seeing in this market, BlackBerry actually has a play and has a big play. And that was one of the key points of the work that we've done at the time. But still, it's a company in progress, and BlackBerry is still needs to be proven to prove that it can take that next step.
Guy, these are things that you really hear about, in university in case studies. Companies that are coming, they're market leaders, and all of a sudden they lose their footing, and they have to figure out how to, either how to stay in the game. And you got to play the chief strategy officer during that time of learning how to stay in the game and thinking about how to make these acquisitions. What are some of the challenges you're addressing here? Are there different cultural challenges or different adversities that people don't know where we're headed? Because people, I'm guessing, are looking at you and saying, "Hey, you're the chief strategy officer. What's our strategy?" Right? You're outlining what is the strategy of BlackBerry to stay in the game.
So it's actually quite fascinating that startup life and turnaround life, and in BlackBerry it was a turnaround, are actually surprisingly similar. And you wouldn't be thinking about turning around $1 billion business and starting a young company with zero funding is the same, but there's a lot of similarities in it. One, you need to figure out your story. You need to figure out your message. And in a turnaround, it's a new message. In a startup, it's a new message. You need to keep focus. It's not easy to keep focus. Okay, even in a startup, you can lose focus very quickly. In a $1 billion business, you can lose focus even faster.
Of course.
So how do you craft your message? How do you focus your business How do you get your technologies and your people aligned, alignment of all of the people, all of the stakeholders aligned? In a startup, it's small. In a billion-dollar business, it's many more.
Now, just for context, about how many people are in the company around this time? How many are we talking here?
5,000, give or take. And it's a public company, so it's not just the employees, it's the customers, it's the partners, and it's the investors.
And you're turning around the strategy for a company of 5,000 employees. It's not just about the company, it's about maintaining alignment and
alignment. Now, hey, credit goes to John. He's the CEO. I'm not taking this credit with respect.
But I get to talk to the chief strategy officer now. So John, thank you very much. But I'm learning from you at this moment. So you're representing the executive team.
But that was a very fascinating process, and again, the similarities to the startup life were fascinating, and that's what the key message in thinking about turnarounds is exactly how to do that and how to deal with such crises and changes.
I love it. Okay, so Guy, two successful endeavors, an executive in a public company, a Harvard Business School. You probably achieved every entrepreneur's dream. Talk to me a little bit about venture capital, Miasnik Ventures. Why venture capital? Why now? What is your source? Why now? Yeah.
Sure. First of all, it's not venture capital. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So what? It's a different phase in my life now. I've done 3 startups, the business startups, not including the non-business startups. And what I'm still fascinated by is that early stage foundation and incubations of businesses.
Okay.
That's sort of what drives me, because that's the time where you can shape, you can direct, you can really figure out and create something that is completely new. So that's what I do right now. I really work with very early stage entrepreneurs. Sometimes it could be a professor that has some ideas and wants to figure out how to commercialize it. Sometimes, in other case, could be an executive that wants to get out and figure out where to go. Sometimes it's already an existing team that may have some initial funding and wants to figure out how to take the next step. And I join them. I join them in some capacity. Typically, it's a bit of an investment and advisory and or board position, but it's a very executive position, meaning I spend a lot of time, I try to really make sure that they don't make my mistakes. Let them create their own mistakes, but don't make my mistakes, and learn from that experience. And what at the end I'm looking for is, number one, is amazing people. That's for me the number one criteria in every one of these decisions and endeavors. And obviously it needs to be a fascinating market, the field, right? You want to be in the field, you better enjoy the field.
Right.
I'm always looking for fields that have an impact and have some social impact. I've been working in public safety, I've been working in security, I've been working in healthcare, education. It's areas where you can actually feel and sense the impact of what you're creating. And also sectors that attract certain type of people. And I'm not talking about necessarily just the founders, but the entire ecosystem around it. Remember that when we, in AtHoc, right, which was at the end a public safety company, and we had about 200 people, we had amazing guys. We have people who were ex-military, ex-fire people, firefighters, people who came from emergency management of counties, people that were really living the mission. And that's the passion and the mission is a very crucial part of this.
Very, very cool. So you're saying, working with entrepreneurs, you're working with them, as a sort of almost joining their team. But, when we started the conversation, the first thing you mentioned was that, when you're an entrepreneur, you're guided by emotions and this urge to do something that doesn't exist. This, a lot of people say that entrepreneurs have to be crazy. So it must be frustrating sometimes when you're working with entrepreneurs. You've made the same mistakes they're about to make. They're gonna make this mistake, but entrepreneurs are guided by emotions sometimes, and I'm sure that sometimes they don't listen. Sometimes they need to make that mistake. Is that frustrating to you, or do you say, okay, I'm gonna let them make this mistake?
So you know what? I have 3 kids. One of them is now 21 years old. He has his own startup.
Yeah.
So when you raise kids, you go through the same thing, right? You see what they do, you try to give them their best advice and wisdom, and hopefully most of the time they listen. Sometimes they don't listen. Hopefully most of the time you're correct, but sometimes you are not correct as well. So it's a matter of really the team and the people that you work with, and to find ones that can have a mutual respect. But also remember something very important. At the end, it's their startup. Okay, it's not you. Okay, as if you are joining, in this case, it's me. If I'm joining and I'm supporting them, it's still supporting them. They are the founders, they are the entrepreneurs, they are the guys that are in the trenches and will go and make that happen. So we always have to remember.
I love it. I love it. And I'm learning so much through our work together in J Ventures, and it just, I think that your passion for helping entrepreneurs just shines through this. And I look forward to working together much more. And I had a wonderful chat with your son the other day, and I was just so impressed and so taken back that it was really doing incredible things. And now I understand the mentorship that he gets. But Guy, before we leave, I have to ask for 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Got it. Okay, you gave me a few minutes heads up on this one. But we were speaking throughout, so I didn't have too much time to think.
Yeah, when I tell you that you have 19 minutes to prepare, it's actually a lie, because you have to answer me for these 19 minutes.
So I would say 1 is passion. Okay, passion in whatever you do. Okay, and enjoy whatever you do. Number 2 is persistency. Okay, and I spoke about it. Just be there and play the game.
Play the game to stay in the game.
And number 3 is family.
Oh.
It's family. And family is obviously your own immediate family, but family is also the team that you create and you build in your startup, and the ecosystem you build around it. And if you treat them as a family, it is become your family. That's the first thing.
Guy,
make sense?
Toda rabba. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the inspiration. And I'll see you around in our monthly meetings.
Micah, thank you very much.
Take care.